Well, time for some new ground to travel through. Hopefully, we won't have to go through familiar territory to gain the next major item we need to make progress anytime soon. Again, I can't help finding it funny that somehow this game makes it feel like things are smaller than the previous two Metroid Primes when this is the only part of the trilogy where we need to use our ship to go from point to point that isn't even on the frickin' same planet. At least watching the ship land is one of the ways the game avoids having especially annoying loading screens just like the doors. I wish Star Wars had that kind of excuse for all the ship landings we see it in, but they do it just as often in the movies as they do in the games. It's pretty much tradition at this point. Speaking of tradition, is there a reason this game only does that little audio cue when we get off the ship when it used to be whenever we load the game? It's not a big issue, but it is kind of confusing. I'd prefer to wait for the enemy's hyper mode to end rather than match hyper mode for hyper mode. Though I'm pretty sure that's not how the game designers wanted the player to react to this sort of thing. Bloody hell. That guy certainly did quite a bit of damage before he was taken down, that's for sure. Still, we're the one standing and he isn't. That's all that really matters around here. Well, that style of armor certainly isn't doing the enemy many favors, mostly because I tend to stick with the power beam whenever possible. The armor that requires us to use missiles against it is a good deal more effective, considering my usual combat style, but then any armor is better than none. A fresh energy tank. Not difficult to find by any means, but at least this one wasn't directly in the only path forward like the others we've grabbed so far. I suppose that's something. Now, just what the hell are we supposed to do in order to get past that shield? I'm not seeing anything glaringly obvious, though maybe that's just because I'm not looking in the right spots just yet. Perhaps something at a higher elevation? Apparently I'm having some platforming issues right now. There we go, a morph ball tunnel. Nothing in here to scan, but apparently we're gonna need to do more motion control bullshittery in order to make more progress. Again, it wasn't that bad on the actual console this was released on, but I wish they didn't make it such a big thing in this game. Motion controls just didn't turn out to be the massive game changer that Nintendo thought it would. And now I can't help remembering the hilariously bad motion control attachments that ended up going to the Xbox 360 and PS3. Sony and Microsoft wanted to draw on the section of the market that Nintendo Wii created, and didn't have a damn chance, even though their systems had better processors. I'm sure in the indistinct future, there will be virtual reality games that can manage to do a better job with motion control style stuff than the Wii, but that system was explicitly designed for that style of control. If anything, the biggest issue with the Wii was probably the fact that not too many third-party developers really could figure out how to take full advantage of the motion control system, the same way that Nintendo, the guys who initially developed it, could. As I said in a previous clip, The only two games I especially enjoyed on the Nintendo Wii were Metroid Prime 3 and Red Steel. I suppose you could also include the Wii Punch-Out game, but you could get away with not using the nunchuck and just using half the Wii controller as if it was an old NES controller.
Data received.
Well, that bombing run certainly had a dramatic effect. I was expecting it to make a hole in the gate, not for the gate to cease to exist altogether. Anyway, it looks like we've got another of the especially big pirates coming. Bloody hell. Excuse me for expecting them to be treated as a relatively big event to deal with for longer in this game. Sure, they're not as common as the usual grunts, but this guy wasn't even given the dignity of a health bar. And this is despite the fact that he's got the exact same moveset and appearance as the monster we fought back on the Olympus. The only real difference is that I can tell is that he doesn't seem to have the mouth laser thing and he can't form those little orbs under his shoulders for more armor. Yeah, keep on snarling, big guy. Definitely nothing special to bring him down, probably why he had so much infantry support. Not that his support held up all that well against us either. Guess we're back to dealing with forgettable enemy grunts for a little bit. Sure, not every encounter should be all that memorable, but this game is more action-oriented than the other Metroid Primes. You'd think they would take more time to make it all feel more awesome. Anyway, looks like we've got something that requires the speed boost to go up. Guess that's gonna be an excuse to come back here sometime later. Now, will I have to remember about that little corner? Or will the game outright tell us there's something up that ramp later on? Probably not something that will be answered in this clip, but still, feels like something worth asking considering how often the Aurora unit has been telling us where to go so far. If anything, she's kind of more annoying to me than Yulmos from Metroid Prime 2. Sure, the Luminoth as a whole felt pretty damn annoying to me in the previous game as a whole, and the conflict with the Ing felt pretty garbage to my war-obsessed mind, but he just told us to go to a general area and we explored it and found whatever we needed to make progress there. Whereas the Aurora keeps telling us to go exactly where we need to go, from the major upgrades to the things we need to destroy. Maybe she'll grow on me later on though. For now, let's just deal with the next batch of enemies. Part of me would like to know if that guy exploding so close to the other guy did any damage. The other part knows there's no way that fighting these flyers is enough to justify the large area so many shields around us in. Right, and here comes a more distinctive enemy unit. Okay, so it's essentially someone riding cavalry. I'm sure that breath attack would be very painful to be on the receiving end of, but still feels primitive compared to the jetpack guys. A hussar, huh? Bit of a missed opportunity since they didn't make the creature he rides on winged. I mean, sure, maybe the Japanese game designers didn't know specifically about the winged hussars, a Polish heavy cavalry unit. For all I know, it was just someone on the American localization team that decided to use the word hussar for this guy who rode this creature. At least it's more fitting than StarCraft using the word dragoon, which means light cavalry, and using it as the term for a mech suit that carries warriors that are too wounded to take on other duties. That just felt like they used a term that sounded cool and barely gave a damn what it actually meant. Anyway, I'm definitely having a lot more trouble killing the creature that was used as a mount than I did the man riding the bloody thing. I suppose that makes up for the fact that the enemy went from using jetpack troops with advanced gear to someone on a fantasy beast's back. Hell, the pirates have always been trying to tame various dangerous animals to enhance their military in various ways. Wait, so to make the enemy more vulnerable in the belly, we had to rip something off of his tail? Again, seems a bit odd. Well, the health bar certainly goes down in a hurry once we know how to open that vulnerable spot, that's for sure. And look at that! We beat the creature and the shield opens up, letting us move on. What is even the point of the occasional item replenishing our ship missiles? It's not like we have any indicators in our heads-up display for how many explosives our ship still has, or that we have the ability to send our ship on a bombing run outside of very specific targets. Kind of feels like an artifact they didn't bother removing for when the ship was something we use more actively and a different considered build of the game. Those little drones really like taking pot shots from behind us. Probably their best chance of causing damage considering how fragile they are and how few showed up here. There probably were better ways for me to handle that group though, something that would make the minor annoyance just that little bit less annoying. Well, this seems as good a time as any to save for the moment, and with how much time we've spent on this clip so far, we can certainly afford to keep the clip going longer with some more footage. It's just a bit annoying that I'm gonna have to find an abrupt moment to end this clip since the two bits of raw footage combined end up going over half an hour long. What can I say? I like that little rule about clip lengths, even though YouTube itself stopped giving a damn about hour-long videos quite a few years ago. It helps kind of keep the various videos I upload digestible, in my opinion. Really wish I could tell when a door is going to take longer than usual to open. An upgrade and some lore at the same time. How kind of them. Right. So the people with magic were more concerned with hunting people down than doing anything to recover what was left of their destroyed world. Somehow I would have expected that from the technology side. Not magic, but then I'm pretty used to technology in fantasy settings to end up treated as the evil thing, like in Lord of the Rings, and the more natural way of life to bring balance back to the world. But again, I have not seen all that many examples of fiction of outright wars between sci-fi technology and especially good magic. It's typically not as big of a gap. Well, we have absolutely no choice to move on other than to call the ship in to be chased off by the anti-air guns. Excuse me for feeling annoyed that the obviously wrong answer that won't get us anywhere is the only option. It's the kind of thing that makes repeated playthroughs just that little bit harder to justify to myself, and doesn't help this game feel like it takes the best of what the previous Metroid titles brought to the franchise. Seriously, How many other times, 2D or 3D, have we been absolutely railroaded to do an objectively useless action because it was the only way the game would allow us to make progress instead of the game letting us figure things out for ourselves? And bloody hell, the cutscene where our ship gets chased off isn't enough to trigger for the pirates to open those doors? We need to do something else to trigger the bad guys opening the doors for us? I probably wouldn't be as annoyed with this if it wasn't for the word Metroid in the damn title of the game. Great. The map needed time to load, and it's still telling us we are exactly where we need to be. We certainly don't need to go back to a previous area to gain another upgrade. We haven't gained anything that would open any new doors in this sector of the planet. The only thing we haven't scanned here is the shield itself, and I'm pretty sure we already know everything we need to about that. So we were supposed to try to leave, which is again, objectively not the decision we would actually try to make here, but the game is railroading us into these things for some reason here. I have nothing against explicitly being railroaded. I've done various things like Call of Duty, but come on. While the 3D games aren't as well known for moments where you can sequence break things, they never made the railroading feel restrictive to the point of removing player agency to such a degree. They would simply leave paths open and expect us to sooner or later figure out which of the accessible paths we're supposed to start exploring beyond. But again, this game doesn't seem to give us much of a damn about exploration, something that is a pretty big cornerstone to the franchise as a whole. Well, the enemy certainly isn't trying to swarm us on our way to the first of the two anti-air guns. I know we're 11 clips in, but I can't seem to get a handle on the tone of the game as a whole. This is not a war story in the veins of Medal of Honor, and it's not an exploration-focused title like the other Metroid games. It just doesn't really know what to be. Part of me wants to praise those turrets for blending into the environment so well I didn't notice them until they deployed. Not sure why there were some canisters with fuel gel that showed up out of nowhere there, though. I mean, sure, the planet has an obscene amount of fuel gel, and I'm kind of surprised the planet isn't an outright powder keg. If anything, I am most shocked that this planet isn't going to outright blow up. It's not like the series is shy about that sort of widespread destruction. But since this planet with a lot of explosive material isn't going to be the final location of the game, and we're most certainly past the prologue, it is definitely safe, because we are going to want the option to come to it in case we want to grab whatever we missed later on for the rest of the game. I seem to be coming up with a lot of things to complain about left and right from the start of this one, whereas as bad as Metroid Prime 2 felt as a whole, I really loved the opening until the point where I made it to UMOS in the central area. I probably said this before, but it just feels funny to think about, really. I absolutely loved the start of Metroid Prime 2, and it wound up being my most hated of the trilogy, and until the release of Metroid Other M was my least favorite Metroid title, period. Sure, nostalgia made me remember it as being better than it actually was, but even with nostalgia goggles on, I felt like it was the worst of the lot to a degree. I just thought that meant it was pretty good in a lineup of excellent games. It's strange how memory works sometimes, that's all. shell we blow up in the gun, we need to get out from under it or get mangled by the electrical field. Let's just see how many times we have to repeat the process before the gun is gone. Two fuel gel things to deal with. I'm assuming one more to go. And great. Part of me is wondering why the enemy is even bothering to use fuel gel when they've been working so hard to make Phazon their primary fuel source for this trilogy. Is it just that one of the various annoying things I'm not supposed to think about around here? Or is there some actual in-universe explanation? And that does it. 3 is the magic number to destroy one of these guns. Hell, 3 is such a consistently used number that I probably shouldn't have even wondered how many more we'd have to do. But to be fair, we have to deal with just one more anti-air gun as we deal with the second and last shield generator on this planet. The rule of 3 is not that big of a thing around here. It can be broken. Yeah, offline is one way to describe making the 4 cannons top of the gun cease to exist. Personally, I'd go with done for. Especially since the enemy isn't going to bother trying to do anything to repair this or the other gun when they no longer have a shield generator to protect from our bombing runs. Part of me feels a bit off since I'm not looking for anything to scan around here, but again, this game has been a good deal more action-oriented than the other Metroids we've gone through, even if the action isn't as satisfying to me as the likes of Dread. And it's kinda hard to feel too bad about that, since Dread was released a good deal after this game was, and went in the direction of 2D, not 3D. That is pretty much comparing apples and oranges.